Hello, welcome to another episode of the series about Ernesto Bozzano. So 2025 is the year of Ernesto Bozzano and all his work. So today, to talk about the crisis of death, we have our dear friend Alexandre Caldini. Caldini, welcome to the studio.
Thanks so much. Really a pleasure to be with you, with Elsa, with our friends. Thank you for the invitation.
The pleasure is all ours. So, following the series, we had last month our dear friend Charles Kemp talking about the biography of Ernesto Bozzano. And today, our friend Alexandre Caldini, he will be talking about the book, The Crises of Death. So before we start the presentation, I just want to briefly introduce our dear friend. So Alexandre Caldini, he's a book writer, graduated in business. He got courses in the UK and the USA as well. And he works for his own company as a consultant and mentor for executives. Please, Caldini, feel free to add anything you feel like or correct me if I'm wrong. So
it's all fine.
Yeah. So he's been
Thanks.
studying spiritism for the past 30-something years and wrote 3 books so far on the matter. One called Spiritism. The other one is Death According to Spiritism. And the third one called Life According to Spiritism. Life and Death, the final 2 books, together they sold over 100,000 copies. And all the proceeds of these books, they go to Crises André Luiz. It's a non-profit NGO and provides shelter for over 500 people and free medical care to more than 1,700 patients with intellectual and or physical impairment. So Alexandre, he's been giving lectures for a long time in Spiritism to Spiritist centers all around Brazil and abroad. And he's also a volunteer commentator for a Spiritist TV station called Mundo Maior, Greater Worlds, and the Spiritist radio station Boa Nova, both of them in Brazil. And on YouTube, you can find around 300 short videos where Mr. Caldini explains the Spiritist views of life and death. So, Caldini, please feel free to add anything you consider important.
I'm sorry, correction. Should have sent to you beforehand. I didn't. I just changed it. The books are not. The profits of the books are not going to Crises André Luiz any longer. He did for many years. Yeah, it was a lot of money. I was very pleased to be able to offer to them. Now I'm thinking about donating to someone else, but it's still the same thing. It doesn't come to me. I want to use, I will use for the promotion of Spiritism. Whatever is needed to promote our beautiful philosophy, that's probably the use I'm going to do for this money. But what you said, just apart from that, thank you. And this year, Munir, there's a new book coming. Just finished the day before yesterday to review my new book. Yeah, it's going to be launched probably in August by the same publishing house, which is called Sextante in Rio de Janeiro. And there's no title yet. I'm still looking for the title, but the book's ready. It's just a matter of finding the title.
Wonderful. That's a piece of good news. And anyway, your books, the proceeds, they will go to, charity anyway.
Certainly.
So thank you very much, Caldini. It's a pleasure to have you here in the studio with us in this Ernesto Bozzano year. And I'll leave it to you for your
Thank you so much,
presentation.
Yeah.
So I'll see you shortly.
See you. Well, friends, again, pleasure to be here with you, all of you. I would like to thank Elsa and Munir for the opportunity. This is my 3rd time with British Union of Spiritist Society and their partners. I'm very glad to be able to participate to this. It's really an honor for me. So thank you very much. And I start apologizing for the English. Maybe I just did the translation of this presentation a few minutes ago. I just finished it. So I hope it's okay. But let's go. I was just telling Munir how happy I am with this book I just read again. I read this book long ago. It didn't impress me much, and this time it did impress me a lot. And because it's so simple, the language is so easy to understand. and so down to earth that I do recommend you read the book. It's not a big book; it's a small book, very easy to read. And the main focus of the book, or actually the only focus of the book, is what happens at the very moment when we move from incarnation to being disincarnated. What happens when we die at that moment? Do you think it's the same thing that happens to all of us, or is there a different pattern depending on who we are? And if there is a different pattern, what determines what happens to who? That's basically what our dear Ernesto Bozzano researched and shown in this book that I'm going to show you in a minute. Let me see if how this oops, sorry. For some reason, it's not moving. Just a second. I think I have to move my cursor here just a minute. Oops. Sorry. Something went wrong here. Just a minute, please. Munir, I'm going to interrupt the sharing. I'll come back with it in a minute.
Okay, no problem. Continue.
Maybe while you do, you can announce the next presenter.
Yeah, we'll make the announcements then. So, next month, we'll have on the 2nd of March here with us in the studio to talk about the work by Ernesto Bozzano, mediumistic communication between the living. Very interesting topic. We always think about mediumistic communication between a dead person and a living one. And this time we'll get to know a little bit more about the communication between the living. And our guest speaker is Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. She'll be talking to us about this topic. We also have studies, and this one is organized by the Spiritist Center for Peace. It takes place online on Wednesdays, 12 noon London time, where we have the opportunity to study the books Heaven and Hell and also the Gospel According to Spiritism, both by Allan Kardec. So you have here all the information you need to join us, and we'll be delighted to have you with us in the study group. We also have every Saturday, 10:30 a.m. UK time, we have a study group for the Mediums book. And the study is coordinated by Guilherme Dias, Charles Kempf, and myself. It's open to everyone who wants to study the Mediums book, and you are most welcome to join us. Also, you have here all the information you need to join us, including the passcodes. We have also a study on Tuesdays. It's also online, organized by the Spiritist Society of London. And it's a study also of the Heaven and Hell book. You are most welcome to join. It's at 7 p.m. London time. You have also the meeting ID and the passcode here if you want to join us. You're most welcome to do so. We also invite you to the lectures that we have on Wednesdays. It is 4 p.m. United States, 6 p.m. time of Brazil, 9 p.m. UK time, and 11 p.m. in Lithuania. And, we have different topics every Wednesday. So very interesting to watch on YouTube and Facebook. So please join us in these efforts to bring some Spiritist knowledge to the public. You're most welcome to do so. And we want to thank Kardec Radio for allowing us to have the studio to organize this series this year about Ernesto Bozzano. So we are very grateful to the Kardec Radio for allowing us to do that, making it possible. So these are the announcements I had to make, bringing them forward. Let's see if our guest speaker is now with the slides ready for us to watch. So while we wait for our dear guest speaker to come back to the studio, I just want to say this is an effort, a joint effort of the Spiritist Center for Peace, together with the British Union of Spiritist Society, the Spiritist Society of Ireland, Kardec Radio, Allan Kardec Study Group. So all together, we make possible the series of lectures every year about one Spiritist writer. We had first Léon Denis, then we had Gabriel Delanne, Camille Flammarion, and this year, 2025, we have Ernesto Bozzano. So I hope you enjoy the lecture. Let me bring back to the studio our dear friend Alexandre Caldini.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can see you. I can hear you. I can see the slides as well.
Good. Sorry about that. I think now it's going to work. Sorry. So let's go.
I can see your image.
Okay. Can you see the presentation as well, right?
The presentation I can, not your image.
Right.
No.
Oh, not my image?
No.
Oh, sorry. But let's go for the presentation then, because I don't know how to move.
Problem.
Okay? Yeah. If you don't mind. At the very end, I can come back with my image.
Yeah.
So, friends, again, sorry for this interruption. So this is a book published in 1922, and you can find it in Kindle. In reais, only found in reais. I didn't found in pounds. When in reais is 30 reais, 274 pages, and in paperback you can pay basically 13 pounds, sterling pounds, or 120 reais for the paperback version, which is 200 pages basically. Again, it's a very interesting book where he's going to talk about what happens when we die. First, he shows evidences of what he's going to show. He shows basically 17 different cases of the moment where people are dying, what happened to them. And he says, basically, he looked at very different publications. None of the cases he shows, none of them was cases that he himself was involved with. Basically, he made a research on different publications. Those publications were about cases involving different mediums and different spirits. So he says, take a look at these 17 cases. There's plenty of quote-unquote similarities, coincidence, quote-unquote. So it's not a coincidence. Once it's different spirits, different mediums, and same results, so he says, so this is an evidence that this is true. Second, some of the mediums, he published the results, they were completely ignorant on spiritual matters. They have never studied Spiritism, or they were never even involved on any spiritualistic philosophy or religion or anything like that. So he says, because they didn't know anything, it's very interesting the way they provide the answers, because it's very much aligned with the Spiritism without them having ever studied Spiritism. And third and last, he says, it's very interesting because what those mediums say for what they have received from the spirits about the process of disincarnation, it goes completely 100% against, in opposition to their Christian faith. Most of them were Catholics. Others were of different religions, but basically Christians. And so these people believed in heaven and hell, and the judgment by God, and what they show through their mediumship is a totally different ballgame. So it says those three things, for me, Ernesto Bozzano, they show that the results of this are true. Let's move to the cases. They're very interesting. I'm going to show very briefly each case to you, just a summary of it. The first case is of a person that was a castaway. He was in a ship that wrecked, and he was drowned, and he tried to save his wife, and they both died. I will show you like this testimony first, and the word of our dear writer Bozzano in black, right? The apprenticeship. This first guy says, I didn't suffer at all. As a matter of fact, none of the people who died in this accident suffered. So please do not believe that people die when they suffer. They don't. And please tell that to the families of these people. They did not suffer with the accident. Second, he says, I had what he calls a panoramic view of my existence. He said it was very interesting because everything was so briefly through my mind since the time I was born until I died. And I saw every single friend of mine. And he says not even one single friend from childhood to death was missing on this. And this you're going to see appears in plenty of the testimonials. And then Bozzano says the following. When the soul is calm, when the soul is not in despair, it doesn't need what he calls the restorative sleep, meaning he doesn't have to be put in sleep for a while to recover his balance, to recover his normal way of being. He says basically people who are ill, elderly, people who died with worries, people who are afraid of dying, people who do not believe there's anything else after dying. These people do need a longer period of sleep. They need to recover. They need to be prepared to wake up as a spirit. Case number 2, I'm going to pass real fast to the cases because basically the overall picture is what matters. He says the following. It was not easy for this guy. This was a person who was totally indifferent to the spiritual world. Never paid attention to that. Never really cared about if there is a life after death, if there are spirits or not. It didn't matter to this person. He said it was a bit difficult to separate from the body, to get away from his body. It was not very easy. To the opposite of the previous one, which was very easy, he was almost immediately out of the body and living as a spirit. He says, when I woke up, my body was kind of in decomposition. So for that, I believe I was sleeping for many, many days or perhaps months or perhaps years. That was the clue for him to try to set the time he was asleep. He said 2 known people came to me, 2 gentlemen, to receive me. This is very interesting because normally people see their friends and their family. They come to host us when we die, when we pass away, when we go to the spirits world. In this case, it was 2 unknown persons. And why is that? Bozzano explains a bit down there. First, this spirit was what he calls a gloomy environment. Everything was a bit dizzy, a bit difficult, was not so clear. And he was received by unknown spirits because of affinity. Those 2 guys, they didn't have much of a spiritualization either. But they were still very nice people, but they were kind of like this gentleman itself. So you are received by the people like yourself. There's a lot of affinity on this time. And the interesting thing about this case, Bozzano points to us, it happened in 1857. And this was the very beginning of Spiritism. Kardec was just starting to investigate the spiritual world and started to write his book. So there was no way that this spirit and this medium could know anything about Spiritism. And everything they say is very much aligned with the Spiritist philosophy. Case number 3, it's a soldier that went to war. He got typhus. He was really ill. He was sent to the hospital, and he died in the hospital. And said, immediately after I died, I felt very well. Funny enough, I was very well. And I was received by my colleagues. Funny, the guys who received me were exactly the same guys who I have buried before. Guys who died, my companions, my colleagues who died in war, and I had buried them, and they received me there as very good friends. Then a little bit later, this spirit says that his grandmother invited him to her house. And to that, Bozzano takes some conclusions, very interesting conclusions. First, this spirit did not recognize his grandma. She had to change her appearance as an old lady, as the grandmother, so this spirit could recognize her. So that means that we can change our looks when we are as spirits. We have that ability, right? So, second, he says, but what about a house? Your mother has a house. That's weird. I mean, spirits have houses. And Bozzano explains, yes, they do have houses. Everything is created by the power of our minds. So you can create a house, you can create whatever, a lamp, you can create a piece of pizza, you can create a bottle of water, whatever you want to, because you have this power. Spirits can create things with the ability of their minds. Only very special organizations, say, for example, the environment, the mountains, the rivers, the flowers, the trees, the big picture, let's put it this way, the big picture is created by special mediums with special abilities. But regular spirits can create things they need. So I would like to have whatever, I would like to have a new shirt. You can create your shirt. I would like it to be on this color. You just think and it's created. And also, on this case, he says, in the conversation with this spirit, he understands that there are spheres near to Earth. They are for transition. They have the joie de vivre. They have they look more or less like the places we live, to be less dramatic. He says, imagine if just regular spirit, not very wise yet, not very developed yet, suddenly from day to night dies, and then suddenly is in a totally different environment with nobody flying around. It would be a huge shock. So there is those spheres who are near to Earth that are very much like our own environment on Earth. So we adapt to that new environment before we move on to a more developed stage. For me, friends, this was a huge understanding. Why? Because I never really liked so much the Nosso book, Nosso history, and all those cities in space. I said, oh, this is not true, can't be true. Why do a spirit has to take soup? Why do they have to have a house? Why do they have to go to the bathroom? Why do they have to have a pet? I don't believe that. Why do you have to work to pay for your own expenses when you're living as a spirit? I never really accepted it very much. And when I say this, and you're going to see this repeats over and over and over again on the cases, I say, well, perhaps this is true, because much earlier than Nosso Lar, much earlier than Chico Xavier, this was already being expressed by so many different spirits. So it's not that you need a material thing, but you can have it if it makes you feel more at easy in this new environment. Case number 4, again, a soldier, but this soldier was for First World War. He died in battle. And then he came to the medium. He was announcing the death of other soldiers before any news came to the family. He was, for example, say, well, John died today on a bombing attack, and so did Peter. 3, 4, 5 days later, a week later, a letter would come to the family saying that this guy died at the very same date. So this is a confirmation that this is all true, that the guy was there seeing what was happening in battle. Also, in this testimony, there's something interesting. It says, no two spirits go through the same experience one day. Why is that? Because we're different. I'm different than you. You're different than me. I have a different pattern in terms of moral development and abilities, different than yours, different than my mom's, my dad's, my son. So every single person enters the spiritual world through a different door, because no experience is the same. But you're going to see later, there's plenty of common experiences among us. This guy died of a grenade attack. So he said his body was abruptly, his etheric body, his perispirit, right? The perispirit was taken abruptly from his material body. That causes some shock. He had to recover from that. And he also says not every single spirit perceives other spirits. You have to have a certain degree of spiritualization to perceive other spirits. Some don't see any spirit to begin with. Then afterwards, after a while, they might start seeing other spirits around them. And Bozzano, in this case, says the sense of isolation that this spirit has experimented is because he was still unperfected. He didn't perceive the spirits or the other spirits. The thinking creates the destination after all that. So if I believe I'm going to go to paradise, I probably will go to a place that looks like paradise. If I believe I'm going to go to hell, even though those hell and paradise do not exist, I might go to a place that looks like hell because I believe in that. I how can I say that? I built this image around me. So different beings, distinct development, they go to vicissitude or virtue, venture, depending on how they are. Case number 5, this is a reverend, right? And basically he says the same. I mean, you go to where your moral, intellectual, and spiritual conditions allow you to go. But there's a law of affinity. You're going to be together with your peers. And this was very interesting also. He said he met his sweetheart, he met his wife, and that was a great joy for him. But not long they had to split, they had to separate, because he says there was a bifurcation between us. She had to go in this way, I have to go that way, because our development as spirits were different. And so he says, this is not a problem. Even though I love her, I understand, and I didn't suffer from that, because I understand each one has to go on its own development. This is very important, I believe, because it's a good tip for us not to be attached to anything. And also, perhaps more important, not to be attached to anyone. Not to be attached to anyone. That doesn't mean that you cannot love your son, your daughter, your wife, your mother-in-law, your sister-in-law, whatever. Love is something different. Attachment is not so good. I mean, if you love someone, you want this person to be happy, to develop himself or herself. So you let this person go. You don't want to have that person with you. So, and he says it's even easy to let the person go, because if you miss this person, just think about him or her, and immediately, in a fraction of a second, you're going to be together again. So this is superb, isn't it? Something really interesting. You don't have to be 100% of the time with the person. If you miss the person, you can be in touch, and then you split again, everyone goes to its place. First sentence on the lower part in black. No intervention of a supreme judge. Each one moves into its own heaven or hell. What does he mean by that? Different than the medium beliefs on heaven, hell, on there being a judgment from God that would say, you go to the right, you go to the left, you go to heaven, you go to hell. He says that does not exist. There's no supreme judgment. You judge yourself. As a matter of fact, you create the world where you're going to live. So you prepare yourself for your future. Case number 6. This was a very pragmatic and autonomous woman. She always solved her problems all by herself. And when she disincarnated, she was feeling totally alone. There was nobody with her, and she felt strange. But before that, she even heard her good friends talking about her in her funeral, saying the most awful things about her. So that's a tip for us as well. Be careful. When you in a funeral or anywhere else, in talking badly about a person, that person might be there listening to you, right? And she said, it's funny that it's a weird sensation knowing that you're dead, but you're being full of life. It's very interesting. It's the opposite of what I thought. And she had to be alone for a while because that's the way she behaved. So she could feel the need of being with someone else. When she felt that need, then the two sons of her suddenly appeared to her. They were there, but she was not able to see them. When she thought about having a company, she was able to see her two beloved sons, right? Case number 7, again, soldier of the First World War. He died over there. And he said after he woke up, he met his father. His father took him to a house. In this house, there was a gentleman. It was his uncle, Uncle Walter. And he said, I never met Uncle Walter because he died before I was born. But when I saw him, I knew him. And I knew him because of my dreams. My father used to take me as a spirit to be with my Uncle Walter. So this is interesting, shows us how we move during the time we're sleeping, right? He says everything that we think is engraved somewhere. He said in ether. And for me, it occurs to me, friends, a parallel with cloud computing, right? Where's all my stuff that I produce on my computer? They're on something called cloud, the cloud computing. Where's cloud? I don't know, somewhere. Maybe a piece is in China, a piece is in Georgia, the other piece is in Sri Lanka, the other piece is in Bolivia. Doesn't matter. It's somewhere else. I think it's very much the same like this. Everything that happens to us is preserved somewhere away from us. And this memory can be recollected once you're out of the body, right? It says there's no way to hide who you are because your spirit, your body reflects your spiritist body, your etheric body reflects your personality, so it shows who you are. Spirits do not talk with a voice like I'm doing with you. They talk by thinking. It's the reading of thinking, right? It's a kind of telepathy. And funny enough, also this guy, he says he saw the incarnated as shadows and the spirit as very tangible people, just the opposite as we do, right? We see incarnated as people, as very material people, and perhaps, I mean, the people who can see spirits, they see kind of like shadowish spirits. So this means that depending where you are, you have this different perception, right? Case number 8, also a soldier from the First World War. He says, when we die, we receive with a lot of tact, a lot of care, delicacy. It's a very, delicate way we approach it, because the friendly spirits want to avoid the shock of the death. That's why we go to a place that looks very much like the places where we used to live. Some of these people come very exhausted after a long period of hustling or disease or something. They have to rest. He says something also interesting. He says, after a while, he says, I'll let the medium write as she wants, not as I'm dictating to her. So I'm going just to pass her the idea, and she's going to write as she will. And then they noticed she changed totally the way she was writing. So this shows that there is an interpretation from the mediumship on what's being said by the spirit, right? Anyhow, he repeats the thing about creating things. The forms of thought and projections facilitate us to adapt. And he says something interesting as well. You can duplicate a cigar or a whiskey or food, whatever you want, if that's going to facilitate what he calls a detox. That's very interesting. For example, say you are smoking, you are a smoker, right? You want to quit smoking. One way you can try to do it is to smoke less and less and less and less and less and less until you don't like the smoke anymore, until you don't have to put the smoke on your mouth, until you quit smoking. That's basically what he says. You can you can make it tangible, whatever you want, to detox of the habit that you have brought with you from living on earth. Case number 9, he says, even the guy says, I'm a heretic in paradise. This guy didn't believe anything. And take a look how this is interesting. You don't have to believe to be helped. He says, I'm living very well. I'm very, very happy. I live in joy and peace and calmness. And this is the supreme happiness. Around me, the panorama is of such a beauty that I cannot even describe it. And my most amazing thing is my view. When I see an object, I see through the object. And I see all the sides of the object at the same time. It's something amazing, right? And this guy as well, this heretic, he said the only thing that was worrying him was to see his good friend Peckham. So he think about Peckham. He saw Peckham walking with his wife in a beach, and he comes and says, "Hey, Peckham, it's me. Do you know I'm dead? Do you know I've died?" At the very same time, Peckham stops, looks around, and says, "What happened to my friend? My friend died. He didn't know he was dead." And so that proves that you can communicate. It's not telepathy because it's a post-mortem communication. He said, so there's this way to communicate afterwards. Case number 10, this was a very gentleman person. He says, be careful not to overestimate your pain when someone that you love dies, because excruciating crisis of grief can be very harmful to us. It says, serenity helps us, illuminates us with vibrations. And heartache gives us a dark and harmful vibration that is very harmful to us. I mean, I cannot move away. I have to stay here because people are feeling very sorry for my departure. Don't do that to people you love. That's very important, because normally we get very upset when someone we love dies. It's understandable, but it's not helpful to them. It's understandable, but it's not healthy. Not to them, not to us, right? So basically, the important tip here is the state of the soul, and our thoughts, they have a very significant influence on the deceased. We have to be very careful about that. This, for me, was the most interesting case Ernesto Bozzano shows on his book. Very, very interesting. It's a suicidal case of a doctor, a physician. This guy, he had mental illness. He has a melancholic. It was something he inherited from his family. And when he comes back from war, he decides to commit suicide. He kills himself. Well, we listen in Spiritism that once you kill yourself, you're going to go to a very horrible place that, due to a Brazilian book by Ivone Pereira, it's supposed to be a place called the Suicidal Valley, right? I personally don't like the book, actually. I don't like it at all, because it shows a very horrible place. It doesn't show any mercy with these people who have committed suicide. And this is a different view. He says, my first impressions after I died was of a lot of joy and was a relief of getting rid of my body. More, he says, no one on the spiritual world questioned me about the way I died, and I was very warmly received. He said, I felt much better. I felt younger. I felt full of energy. I felt happy. So see how different it is from what we are used to hear, right? And for the first time, he said, I was more confident on myself. I was liking myself. But then the medium, he was kind of criticized by the other medium, by the people, by the spirits. They said, no, this is not possible. It's not possible. He committed suicide. He cannot be good. And then they inquired him again. They asked him, how come you're so good if you committed suicide? He said, well, this is my experience. The experiences varies from person to person. And then another spirit said, this guy, he was not wholly responsible for the suicide because he was ill in terms of mental. He had a mental illness, right? So each experience is a different one. That for me showed a very, very, very important thing. Let's not judge anything, but let's specifically not judge the suicidal people we know. We never know what happened to them. We never know what was going through their minds. We never know the reason. Actually, there's no one reason. There's many reasons according to the people who studied suicide. So let's not judge. It might be a case like this when the person might be well. Then case number 12 is a reverend. Basically, he says the body is a very tight cloth. To get rid of it, it's a wonderful sensation. Cool, isn't it? It says past, present, and future are basically the same. They work simultaneously when you're in the spirit's world. He said, when someone asks me something about my past, I have kind of like get away from myself, reduce my mind to the size and potency of a human proportion to remember something. And when I come back, I already forgot what I was to remember. That happens to us as well when we're dreaming, right? You wake up, you don't remember anymore what was just on your mind a few seconds ago. So there's similarity there. But basically, it says this feeling of such a huge mind, expanded mind, you can have it on ecstasy or catalepsy when you're in coma, when you're in pre-agony, and when you're using narcotics, or if you're a somnambulist, or during a mediumship activity, right? So when you're basically almost out of incarnation, you can reach that level of awareness. Case number 13, it's a spiritualist, and she says basically what the author said as well. Death does not exist at all. The meaning of that word is totally nonsense. Don't think of me as dead. I'm not dead. She has a very beautiful saying, say, no traveler arrives in the spirit's world through the same door. Meaning, again, each one has a different experience, right? She says life on earth is just the most desolate part of our existence. It's just a shadow of the existence. She says there's much superior spheres, and we're going to go there somewhere. We have the means to go there somewhere. And from these superior spheres, what she calls superior spheres, is where the superior spirits are, and they're in continuous sending, kind of like vital flows of sparks to the universe. These sparks are absorbed by the vegetal kingdom, she says. And this is new, right? And then Bozzano said, well, that might be an explanation. Because how can we understand the evolution on Earth from monad to amoeba, from amoeba to lichen? How can we understand the progress we had with sensitivity to mobility, to instinct, to intelligence, to consciousness? This movement, something made this happen. Maybe it's this explanation that she just gave us. Okay, so 14, it's a noble spirit, already very well developed it. She said, please scrap from your mind the idea that I'm far away. I'm close to you. Every spirit is close to all of us. Again, she says, as the other ones, I'm renewed, I'm more exuberant, I'm more lucid, I'm happier than I was before. And this one, she said, I listen to wonderful music here, a very, very, very wonderful music. But funny enough, not all the spirits around me can listen to that. And Bozzano explains that, saying you have to be on a certain level of spirituality, of spiritual development, to be able to vibrate to your etherical body, your perispirit, to vibrate in the same level of this music, to understand this music, to listen, to live this music. Another thing interesting she says is her mother and her father suddenly disappeared from her. They vanished. And then Bozzano explains that. He says it's what we call the second death, a new death, another death. They, quote unquote, died from their sphere where she was because they were purified to better stages of life. Let's put it that way. So they don't need that body anymore. They don't need to be on that level of environment any longer. Case number 13, we're going to the very end. It's only 17 cases. This is also very interesting. It was a huge surprise to me. Guess who is the spirit? No one less than Rodolfo Valentino. That's very cool, isn't it? I didn't know Rodolfo Valentino was a medium. He was a medium. He used to write and to give psychophonic mediumship as well. So Valentino was very ill. He was in New York City, and he and his wife had a very good friend called Jenny. And Jenny was already passed away. She was dead already. And suddenly, Valentino's wife was in France, in Nice. And this spirit called Jenny, who was a friend of the couple, he gave a message in Nice saying this spirit was watching over by the bed of Valentino until he died. Then Valentino dies. Oh, sorry. And Jenny also says, I saw when Valentino was taken from home to the hospital, when he was transported from home to hospital. Then Valentino dies, and about a week later, a letter comes to the wife, who was also again in Nice, and the letter was from Valentino's sister-in-law, and she says that Valentino said he saw Jenny, and he called her name while he was being transferred from his house to the hospital. So at the very same time that Jenny said she was there looking for Valentino, he said he saw her and he called her name. So Bozzano says this is a triple confirmation of the thing. The spirit of Jenny said that he was there, she was there, and what happened? Valentino saw her, called for her, and the sister-in-law saw that scene and wrote that down to the wife. So there's a triple confirmation of the happening. Also, Valentino says something interesting. He was walking on Broadway as a spirit. Before he really left Earth, he was walking there as a spirit, and he runs into a woman. He shocks to a woman who does not. No one was seeing him, right? He was a spirit, and he touched this woman, and she said, "Oh my goodness, what is this? Where this cold wind came from?" He was very nervous about it. So, now I'm from a very famous artist. I'm just a cold wind. Yeah, but that's interesting because. No one could see him, but this lady could feel him. She could feel him when he hit into her. What else here? This is Valentino. Case number 16. This is a very repulsed, noble Englishman. He says in life he didn't have a good life. He didn't care about equality or moral stuff. So when he was disincarnated, he was in darkness and silence. And he says this was a terrifying situation. He doesn't know how long he was in this situation, but for a while he was searching for someone, searching for life. This was very difficult. And he was, because of my inequity, I had a very perceptor of me. It was a kind of like a ghost. My inequity was my ghost. And there we see we don't have to have a person after us feeling like guilty or remorse or something like that can also be our ghost, right? And he said, once you're aware of the situation, once you see that you have passed away, that you're now a spirit, you begin to progress to redemption. He says, now I can clearly see there's no one law at all, apart from one, to love. You have to love the other one. If you do so, you're fine. So Bozzano says the sensation of loneliness and abandonment is because you don't see the superior spirits, but they're around you. And the sufferings are all moral, right? Like you miss people, it's impossible to have what you desire. You have deep regrets, and it says to move away from that, you have to take what he calls the impure fluids from your ethereal body, from your perispirit, to make it lighter. You have to be purged from this heavy fluids to float. Let's put it this way. It's interesting because it's a very material description, right? Like you're heavy, that's why you cannot flow to a higher level of understanding. Last case, it's he tried to see an angelic spirit. How a very well-developed spirit, how does he or she or this spirit lives? And the testimony says the following: we not any longer, we're not slaves of the form. We don't have a body. It's interesting how, as you saw, in all these cases, people say, oh, the body is awful. When I got rid of my body, what a relief. So this says this very high-level spirit already. It says we are radiant activity from our aura, meaning we're radiance of thinking and goodwill all the time, flowing away from us. Our thinking changes a lot. We experience a much wider thinking with a prodigious transformation expansion. So I think we can translate that into being much more wise, much more sabios, wise, knowing much more and being able to do much more with our thinking. Matter and space do not exist any longer. Past, present, and future all together. That's very interesting. Difficult for us to understand, right? But that's the way they are. Our personality is shown to all spirits with whom we have affinity. So you're in touch at the same time with every single person, spirit you love. That's what it is to be a very high level spirit in terms of moral and intellectual education. And lastly, we are a radiant state where knowing is equivalent of being, and vice versa. So it's not that you know and you are. Knowing is what you are. So the knowledge, here we can see how the importance of educating ourselves, not just morally, but also intellectually. You have to study and study and study. Study is not just reading a book. Studying the universe around us, studying people, studying ourselves. And Bozzano, out of that, says that the spirit's experience for high-level spirits is not limited by shape. They are conscious centers of psychic radiation, but keeping an identity. They don't lose the identity, but they're in touch. They're kind of melted with everything else, everyone else, but still they keep their identity. And it says something very interesting as well. Omnipresence and omniscience with the source where they emanate. What do I understand by that? You're so close to the source of everything. What's the name we give to the source of everything? God, right? So you're on the omnipresence and omniscience with God. You and God are, my understanding is that we're mixing with God. We're so internal to this. We're so embodied to everyone else and to God as well. That must be a superb experience. It's difficult for us to imagine, but perhaps we start stretching the understanding of this. And now we go to our conclusions after seeing those 17 examples. Basically, he says there's not such a thing as one single door to access the spiritual world, meaning there's many different ways to enter the spiritual world. Depending on who you are, what's your moral status, what's your intellectual status, how do you see the world, you're going to enter in a different way. But there's some fundamental details that are common to all the spirits, and he listed them. First one, spirits present themselves as human shape. Spirit's not a little light, it's not a shadow, it's not spirits present themselves as human. They have a body, they constitute a body for themselves. For a while, most of us ignore that we have died. The first impression is, no, I'm alive. I have not. You must have seen that on your conversations on the Spiritist Center. It's very common. And I have to easily, with a lot of care, to explain to that person that yes, you have passed away, and that's okay. You're not dead. You just don't have your body any longer. All of them mention the so-called panoramic vision, reconnection of all the events on their lives. This is also very common, friends, on the AKM or near-death experience, right? When the person, quote-unquote, dies for a few moments, when it's on a surgery or on a car crash or something, and then recovers itself after a while, then recollects seeing the whole entire life passing ahead of him or her, right? We are received by our relatives or friends. Very common, very, very common. We have seen many people who are just about to die saying, oh, this is grandma's here, grandpa's here, my dad is here, my wife's here. They start seeing people that have already died. The spirits are coming to receive them. It's a long, more or less long, the so-called restorative sleep. As a matter of fact, some of the spirits said it's not really a sleep. It's more like you're in a, how do you say, transe in English? You're more or less like out of yourself. We're not really sleeping. The environment can be radiant or oppressive, depending who you are. If you prepare yourself for a good place, if you live in a good life, you're going to be in a very nice place. If not, you're going to be in a place that's not so pleasant. So we create that, which can be translated by heaven and hell if you want to. The spirit environment is analogous to Earth. We create what they call spheres around Earth to receive us as spirits that are yet not ready for such a strong move as from incarnation to disincarnation. So you have to see a place that's more or less like the one you used to avoid a very strong shock on this change. Thinking creates object and scenario. We have seen that. Transmission of thought is the language. You don't talk, you understand the others. Spiritual vision is sharply and amplified. You have seen that, right? You can see through the object. You can see all the sides of the object very easily, very beautiful. We can transport ourselves by the act of will. I want to be in Siberia. Bah! You're in Siberia. I want to be with my grandma that's already dead. Bah! I'm there with my grandma. So you transport just by thinking. The law of affinity defines our destination. You're going to be where you belong. You're going to be with the people that are more or less like yourself. Affinity. And for me, the most important learning on this is close to where apparently there are experiences to facilitate the adaptation of the spirits to the spiritual world, right? So places like the so famous Nosular or something, they might exist. As a matter of fact, according to this author, they do exist. According to all these sayings, to facilitate our adaptation into a new way of life. But there are also some secondary details, it says. Relatives greeting come before the restorative sleep. So once you die, you're not going to sleep immediately. First, you're going to see some people you like, some people you love, then know you say, calma, take it easy, everything's fine, just come with us, you're among friends, and then you go into restorative sleep. Later on, you wake up. Etheric body glides above the somatic body. It says every single person see itself on top of the somatic body, on top of the dead body. It's natural to kind of glide above it. Time comes when soulmates have to separate themselves for their self-development. I already explained, right? So you're not going to be forever and ever and ever and ever with the same person you love. Oh, but I love my wife. Oh, but I love my husband. Oh, I love my son, my daughter. It doesn't matter. You are a spirit. These other ones are other spirits. And it will come a time when you have to separate to go into different routes. And that's okay. No problem, no suffering on that. Complex, remarkable creations are entrusted to specialized spirits, meaning you can create a simple thing like a pizza, but you cannot create a whole entire city. That's for more specialized spirits. Spirits dominated by passion do not benefit from restorative sleep. They stay around. They are the hunters. They are the ones who stay in houses, who make noises, who make people scary. Those stories of ghosts into haunted houses, haunted castles, that's it. Spirits that are very low yet in terms of knowledge, and they stay around for maybe a long time. Lower order spirits do not perceive higher order spirits due to etheric bodies' lower vibration. So it's all about vibration, right? If you're only able to see things, to understand things, to feel things like the music, for example, if you're already on a certain, how can I say that? A certain definition, a certain quality of vibration. Excruciating crises of grief prevent the contact with loved ones and keep us on earth. So be careful not to exaggerate on the time of someone you love has died. Through telepathy, higher order spirits receive an alert message calling for help or orientation. What does he mean by that? If you sometimes, I wish my mom was here to help, but at the very same time, your mother will sense your need of help, and a voice will come to you in terms of explaining what perhaps you should do, etc. So this was it, friends. This was in brief minutes. I hope I can manage here to be seen by you again. Munir, I'm going to change here the camera, so let's see if I can make myself seen.
All right. Wonderful. It was very nice presentation. It is a very nice book, packed with information. Yeah. You see the difficulty. I felt a great difficulty when first reading the Spirits book, is that the spirits, they talk about the spiritual world, something that when we are incarnated, we have no experience about. Apart from a few people who can consciously detach themselves from the body at night and travel in space and go to other places, we can't check certain things. But when we read a book like this one, and so many, where they tell their impression of the spiritual world, their experience, what happened to them, and I would, put in this context the book by Kardec, Heaven and Hell, where we have all sorts of spirits grouped according to the situation, the condition they had when they arrived in the spiritual world, and they bring all this information for us to understand in the context of the spiritual world what they are talking about in the books by Kardec, because that basically wasn't something that came out from Kardec's mind or incarnate people, but compilation of information from the spiritual world. And this is, I think, was the main task of the spirits, to talk about the spiritual world, to prepare us, to help us see beyond the material world. So it is very, very interesting book. When we see that all these we find in other books by André Luiz, by Kardec, and so many, even Carl Wickland, 30 Years Among the Dead. There's a case of a girl. She committed suicide in a farm barn. She hanged herself, and that was induced by spirits who obsessed her. And so when she came to talk, she wasn't in that terrible situation that we hear about suicidals. But, she was almost induced, forced to that situation. I think it was more or less the case he presented here, Caldini.
Very much so. For me, that was very important to see, because we have to be very careful analyzing, judging anything, and suicide even more. Real quick, I have a case like that. A friend of mine, her daughter committed suicide, and there was no reason for suicide. I mean, the girl came home after a party. She was not drunk. She was not using drugs. She was very happy. She talked to her mom, kissed her mom goodnight, went to bed, came back to her mom, said, tomorrow morning, please wake me up, whatever, at 8 o'clock. I'm going to the house of my friend so-and-so, etc. And mom said, okay. Minutes later, someone knocked at the mother's door. The girl has jumped from her window. And the clothes was there for her to use the next day. So there was nonsense. There was no reason for that. And when she went to our Spiritist Center, the Spirit said to us, be calm, she's okay, she's fine, be calm, there's no problem. We didn't understand that. Years later, my friend dreamed with her daughter, and the daughter said, I didn't commit suicide. I had a dream, and in my dream, I was in a bus, and the bus was going downhill. And I was in despair, I opened the window of the bus and tried to move away from the bus, and then I dropped it. So you see, it makes total sense, total
Yeah.
sense. But if we're not aware, we say, oh, this is a suicide. She must be suffering on the Vale dos Suicidas.
Yeah.
I have to be really careful of that.
Yeah. Intention is everything. In all our actions, intention, what is behind, what moves us to do certain thing. It may happen out of despair, or because we are basically insane or obsessed, or there are so many reasons there. And we should always wish the best for the person and not think, hey, yes, as you said, oh, it's probably in the dark zone suffering so much. And no,
Not necessarily. Yeah.
not necessarily. And what we learn from these testimonies, from so many books, is that there is a common situation, but there are also variations, and they may vary a great deal. It's like, well, what's the normal process of recovering from a skin cut? Oh, it normally happens this way in so many days. But if there is something unusual, you may get a bacteria, for instance. It may take ages for you. It may be a very painful process. And then you may say, how come? So everyone who gets a cut like mine will suffer, how the suffering I had to go through to bear. And it's not true. So we should be open to that. Of course, suicide with intention is terrible, because basically we are denying a benefit that we have of an incarnation. We are actually, going against God, But there are situations where, it's basically out of our control, and we can put everyone in just one basket, and say all cases are like this. Everyone who dies will sleep for so many days. Everyone who dies will take,
That's why I love that. I love that phrase that the lady said, there's not one single door that everyone goes through. There's so many doors. I mean, depending on who you are, you go through a different route.
Exactly.
Right?
We have
and for me, was very, for me, it was very educative as well to think that, to say, Munir, that one of the guys was totally septic. He had a very good welcome. He was very happy. He was feeling so joyful. So you don't have to be a believer. You don't have to be spiritual. You don't have to be religious. You have to be a good person. I mean, you don't have to be anything. But if you try to be a proper person, your life's going to be good. That's only logic. Already here, incarnated, and in the future as well.
Yes. You don't have an ID card saying, oh, I belong to this religion, so I should
go to right, you go to left.
No, yes. It's basically, it comes from inside. How much we how bright we are, that will tell how high up we can go. Yeah.
Having said that, probably taking your explanation to have a card, I'm from this religion, that religion. If we are from this religion, I believe very much that, for example, there's heaven and hell, and I'm not a good person, maybe I will go to hell. I mean, I'm going to build a hell for me. I'm going to see. I'm going to see whatever I believe. Nah? That everything is on the mind.
Yes, yeah. So I advise everyone to read this book, or Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec, or even 30 Years Among the Dead by Carl Wickland, where through his wife, she was a medium and he was a dialoguer. And there are so many interesting cases, because when we see this, this broad group, we see what is common amongst all them and what are the particular aspects of each one. So it helps us understand, There are cases, for instance, there are books. We know the person arrives in the spiritual world, wakes up in a hospital, and meets for the first days the same person that he or she doesn't know. But is a nice person, is always bringing comfort, paying a visit, and so on. And only later that person will know that, yes, we were close friends, before you incarnated. So it's going to take us some time to remember who I am. Because sometimes we expect, oh, my mother from this incarnation, my father, or, someone I love, my wife, this or that.
Which mother? Which one of the dozens of mothers you have had? Which one do you want to meet? Right? Yeah. There's one thing, just one more thing that you said. I didn't put everything here because it was too much, but he said something interesting as well. He says at that time, 1920 something, the Latin spiritists knew about reincarnation. The non-Latin ones, the Anglo-Saxon spiritists said it doesn't exist in reincarnation. And he said because they were very prejudiced against being something else. So he said once you die, these people still do not believe in reincarnation, and because of that, they're not able to recover their quote-unquote past lives. And the ones who believe in incarnation, just like this, they could see their past lives very easily. So that's interesting. Once again, you built your barriers on your mind. You don't see what you don't want to see. It's very interesting how it happens.
Yeah, how long that state of confusion lasts. We go through, but it may be very short. It may take, much longer. It depends how spiritualized we are, how prepared we are, for death and for, the continuation in the spiritual world. And so everything is in us. We, have this garden. We look after this garden. Whatever we cultivate in this garden, that's what we are going to find, And
that for me is the most beautiful thing about Spiritism, autonomy. That's for me, it's the best thing God has given us is autonomy. God trusts us. Do whatever you want. You're fine, Munir. You do whatever you want. It's on your hands. That's beautiful. But not everyone wants it because it's much easier to delegate to someone else. Please do it for me, right?
Ask for the good things and, put the blame on others for the not so nice. True. But God created this vast universe and beautiful and say it's there for you. Go and find the best place for you, Go and work your way towards that heaven for you. So that's why it's different for each one of us. But we should thank God for this opportunity of getting to know all this, why we're still here. Because basically we are preparing ourselves for the inevitable. We all have a return ticket, We don't know the date.
Again, we have been there many times. The responsibility is higher because once you know, obviously the responsibility is higher. You cannot say you didn't know. You did know.
So all this is not for the others. It's for us, for us to make good use of it. So Caldini, thank you very much indeed. We have here with us, saying hello, our dear friend Elsa Rossi, Liz Costa. Hello to you all and those who haven't, send a message to us. But hello to you all. Pleasure to be here with you. Sorry for the hiccup, but I think the pearl of this presentation wasn't touched at all. It's brilliant. It's very nice indeed. So, Caldini, thank you very much indeed once again.
The other way around. Thank you so much, Munir. Thank you again. Thank you, pleasure. Elsa. Thank you all the friends. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you. I hope next year we'll have a different book to read and to speak again.
Let's do it, And thank for those who are watching us. So see you in a month's time. As I've announced before, on the 2nd of March, we will have here with us Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, and she'll be talking about the mediumistic communication between the living. So hope to see you with us next month. For now, bye-bye.
Ciao, bye-bye.